Egypt, the richest source of archaeological treasures on the planet.
Oh, that's a fabulous one.
Beneath this desert landscape lie the secrets of an ancient civilization.
Wow, you can see why the pharaohs chose this place.
Now, for a full season of excavations, our cameras have unprecedented access to follow teams on the front line of archaeology.
I'm driving so fast because I'm so excited.
It's an entrance. We can see an entrance.
Revealing buried secrets.
So I have just been told that they have found something.
A sphinx!
And making discoveries that could rewrite ancient history. This time, archaeologists reveal what tomb raiders left behind. John investigates an ancient tomb robbing scandal.
The royal tombs are not robbed by random robbers.
U.S. Homeland Security helps bring a stolen mummy back to Egypt.
How fabulous.
And Don makes a discovery in a long-forgotten tomb.
Oh my gosh. It has the possibility of being truly exciting.
The Valley of the Kings. 65 tombs hidden in this remote gorge, built to contain the mummies of Egypt's great pharaohs and their treasures. Throughout history, these tombs have been raided, from within just a few weeks of being sealed right up to the 20th century. But to archaeologists, what the thieves left behind is still priceless evidence, helping them to unlock the secrets of ancient Egypt.
Dr. Ryan.
Renowned American Egyptologist Don Ryan is kicking off his season in the Valley.
I first came to Egypt as a student. It was my priority coming to see this place. And I had a map of the Valley of the Kings. And I noticed amongst all these tombs of these famous rulers, there were all these little dots with numbers on them. And those really intrigued me.
The dots on Don's maps represented the smaller and lesser-known tombs in the valley. Don made these his area of expertise.
Working in various tombs around here has so many aspects that make it special, apart from it being the most famous archaeological site in the world.
Dig season runs from October to April and relies on the expertise of hundreds of skilled local workers.
I know this guy from before.
He's a good guy.
This book is kind of special because it goes back to my very first field season in Egypt. This is 1989. Every tomb in the Valley of the Kings is a piece of a great puzzle.
Don's missions have focused on a cluster of small tombs at the edge of the valley. Nearby is the impressive burial chamber of Pharaoh Amenhotep II. But most of the surrounding tombs remain unidentified. All of them were looted centuries ago. Any treasures stolen by robbers. But in some, they left behind mummified animals and ancient pottery. This year, Don is excavating one of the most mysterious tombs of them all, tomb number 49. Who it was built for remains a mystery. Thought to be empty, no one has excavated it for over a century.
We are the first archaeologists to go in there and clear the material out since 1906. I know from previous experience, having excavated a number of tombs from that period, that these early archaeologists usually took the bigger things or the prettier things and left everything else inside.
solving the mysteries of this tomb will be tough. The chamber is totally unmarked.
At this point, we don't have any indication for whom this tomb might have been built. We have to look for all the little clues.
Don has become an expert in uncovering the secrets of these smaller, undecorated tombs.
The tombs I work with don't have any inscriptions. One can't just go in and read the walls.
In the Valley of the Kings, just having a burial chamber is a magnificent honor. It could have been a royal family member, or it could have been a very high official.
Tomb 49 has been robbed by ancient tomb raiders, but that doesn't mean it's empty.
We'll clear this stuff out and we'll go through it, and it'd be really nice if we found something with a name on it. We might find some objects from the original burial. It has the possibility of being truly exciting.
The team has just 3 weeks to move several tons of earth. Each bucketful must undergo a fingertip search, with even the tiniest fragments pulled out for further investigation.
One never knows. It could be the last basketful of debris that might give up the answer that we're looking for.
At the entrance to the valley sits a complex of tombs and temples called Deir el-Bahari. In the cliffs of this site are where important officials were buried.
Shukran. How many people we have today?
Total 30.
So we need 10 more.
Professor Antonio Morales is an Egyptologist from the University of Alcalá in Spain. He's in charge of 30 international experts working here on one of the biggest archaeological projects in Egypt.
We came here to excavate 2 or 3 tombs that belong to very prestigious, very powerful high officials. They provide much information about things like religion, beliefs, ritual practices, and about ancient Egyptian culture in general.
But this year, his government permit has come through late.
This season is going to be very intensive because we were expecting to work for 5 or 6 weeks. We're actually going to do it for 3 weeks, which means that this is going to be double intensive.
Like the tombs in the Valley of the Kings, this site was also robbed by other ancient Egyptians.
Most of the ancient Egyptian tombs were plundered weeks of months after the funeral. So for us, it's very interesting to try to come up with a reconstruction of what happened here.
So those are the contents.
Last year, Antonio's team unearthed hundreds of body parts. Mummies ripped apart by thieves looking for gold and jewels.
The robbers cut the bandages looking for as many objects as possible. And once they were finished with that, perhaps they burned the mummy, they throw it away. They didn't want to have any ghost, any visit from the afterlife.
Tomb robbers believed the dead would come back to haunt them unless they destroyed the mummy. But for the dead themselves, this was the worst possible fate. They needed their mummified body to remain intact to live on in the afterlife. So stopping thieves was about more than protecting your treasure. It was also about ensuring your eternal life.
Rauda can go into the sarcophagus.
Antonio is investigating how the owner of this 4,000-year-old tomb tried to prevent his mummy from being destroyed by looters.
Now we are in the deepest section of the tomb where his coffin and corpse was deposited.
The team knows this tomb must have belonged to an important official. There's no mummy, But the sarcophagus is covered with intricate hieroglyphs. Among them, the team finds the name of the owner.
So this area we can read, this EP, so the deceased is named EP. What you can see here is actually all the things the deceased needs for his afterlife.
Ipi was a vizier, a role second only to the pharaoh, a powerful statesman. He was buried in an ornately inscribed sarcophagus, covered in spells to protect him in the afterlife. To ensure his mummy stayed intact, Ipi's tomb was designed to stop robbers. The entrance was sealed by huge boulders. And inside the burial chamber, the sarcophagus was set into the floor, then covered with stone slabs so that the room appeared empty.
When robbers came, they will see an empty chamber, a wonderful floor, and they will think that the chamber was empty because it was already stolen.
But even this clever design wasn't enough to stop thieves. Ipi's mummy and all his treasures were stolen centuries ago. Outside Ipi's tomb, there's an exciting discovery.
I have been told that just in one of the sections we started working this morning, it seems they have found some kind of a structure.
Antonio's team has spotted an opening in the rubble. It could be an entrance to a hidden chamber, undisturbed for thousands of years. In the Valley of the Kings, Egyptologist Don Ryan is investigating the mysterious Tomb 49.
It stops right there. It's halas right there.
His decision to carefully sift tons of earth from a seemingly empty tomb is paying off. The team has found several artifacts that might help reveal who the tomb was built for, including pottery, wood, and linen.
So these are cloth fragments, and they tend to be well preserved. These could be 3,000 years old because it's dry down in the tomb and conducive to the preservation. It does tell you something. It tells you that if these are mummy wrappings, there was a mummy in there at one time. And that's, of course, important to know.
These pieces of ancient wood and pottery are over 3,000 years old.
This is probably a big chunk of coffin right here. And this is probably part of a dowel or some piece of wood that was used to hold bits and pieces of the coffins together.
You guys got some good stuff.
Well, maybe. We'll see.
Based on what he's found, Don can begin to piece together what was actually inside Tomb 49. A hidden staircase, chiseled out of solid limestone, leads to a 6-by-3-yard chamber. The excavated pieces of wood were probably from an elaborately painted coffin that held a tightly wrapped mummy. Stored around the coffin were everyday items, everything the tomb owner would need for the afterlife. It seems like Tomb 49 is a conventional burial site, but who it belongs to is still a mystery. Suddenly, Don is called to the chamber.
Abdulhadi. Henna.
Among the rubble is a remarkable treasure.
Oh.
Exactly what Don was hoping for.
Oh my gosh.
An artifact with a name on it.
This is a ring made out of glass. And possibly we have on the surface the name of Ramses III, one of the great warrior pharaohs of Egypt. My team would be the first to hold this in over 3,000 years.
The ring is an extraordinary but unexpected find. If it does belong to the pharaoh Ramesses III, it shouldn't be here. Ramesses was buried in tomb number 11, not tomb 49.
How this object got into this tomb is the question.
At Deir el-Bahari, Egyptologist Antonio Morales and his team are working near the ransacked tomb of a pharaoh's right-hand man, the Vazir Ipi. They've just discovered an opening.
What you can see now is rubble. After a couple of hours, we'll be able to see more.
The entrance is so well hidden, it's possible this chamber was never found by robbers.
He's going to clean all this area around, and then once we know what is around, we can take up everything to see what is behind. But make sure you keep many people here working. We need to do all this quickly, okay?
With such a short permit, the team must work against the clock.
It seems that the structure we have found could be larger than we expected. So we need to clean first this area so that they can continue excavating to see whether we can go in to this new structure underneath.
Antonio hopes for good results from this new chamber because last season, close to Ipi's tomb, the team discovered something incredible. What Antonio suspects is the largest deposit of intact mummification equipment ever found in Egypt.
We found these 56 jars related to the mummification process of the Vazir Ipi.
For ancient robbers, these jars had little value.
What we were not prepared for was when we really realized that some of the jars still kept their contents. It really makes it a treasure for us.
Despite being nearly 4,000 years old, the contents are in incredible condition.
Raul, coming in.
So this is the
Perfect.
contents of one of the jars.
With 56 jars to process, Antonio has called in Salima Ikram, professor of Egyptology at the American University in Cairo. She's forensically examining all the items in the jars, including mummified body parts.
Sometimes it's a bit stinky. And then there are moments where you realize you're in touch with people's bodily fluids, which is a bit awkward. But it's fantastic because one is in touch, literally, physically, as well as sort of emotionally, with people who lived thousands of years ago.
Salima is investigating 300 natron bags.
The natron is a mixture of salt and baking soda, and it naturally desiccates and defats, because that's what we do, is we dehydrate the body.
Ancient Egyptians practiced mummification to preserve bodies for eternity. First, priests removed the internal organs. To dry out these organs and the body, the priests used sponges called natron bags to soak up fluids inside the corpse. The soul was believed to reside in the heart, so this organ was kept inside the body. The other organs were placed beside it. All materials used during the process were considered sacred, so everything was packed into jars and entombed close by.
So this is the one that I'm going to start with. And it was early on in the mummification process because it's really hard and it's absorbed a lot of the liquids, the bodily juices. And it's been smushed down and you can see its different points of contact with Ipi's body. Ooh, plumpy. God, that's fat. And this one smells a bit different from the other one. This smells more of body and the other one smelled more of oil. Oh. You know, if you look at anything long enough, you will kind of figure out what happens. If forensic scientists can do it for murders now, we can do it for deaths a long time ago, because that's just what archaeology really is.
These materials are some of the oldest mummification deposits ever found.
The earlier we can go in time, the better it is for us to try and track how mummification changed over time. So really, these are testaments, very physical testaments to what happened and how.
300 miles north in Giza. Here, in the shadow of the pyramids, a team of investigators is in pursuit of modern-day tomb robbers. Shaban Abdel Gawad is a government minister. He works with crime agencies around the world to locate stolen ancient Egyptian treasures.
This is the Egyptian red list of the missing pieces. We are already missing from the museums and the sites and everywhere in Egypt, and we give it to Interpol to stop any piece of them if they're moving from a country to a country.
Shaban has already intercepted over 1,000 stolen artifacts from the global black market.
For me, I don't care if it's a king or a queen or a normal person. We want to preserve them. We don't want to miss any piece of them.
After a year-long operation, ancient mummy parts have been seized in the United States.
I have a call from the people from the Homeland Security. They told me that they caught a man with 3 parts of the mummy. He wants to sell them in the market for in Manhattan. We discovered that this piece it's stolen from in the Valley of the Kings in 1927.
In the 1900s, thieves stole thousands of newly unearthed artifacts from the Valley of the Kings, including human remains.
It's touched my heart because I consider this a man left his country, his tomb, for 91 years. It's like my grandfather or like my father. He left his country not by his sake. It's stolen.
Could these stolen artifacts be the mummified parts of one of Egypt's great pharaohs? Shaban is on his way to the Egyptian Museum, where the illegal artifacts are arriving from the United States.
It's not every day we can receive the pieces we repatriated from outside of Egypt.
Who the parts belong to is a mystery, but mummification was usually reserved for nobility and pharaohs.
We're going to the lab.
Shaban and his team will finally see these extraordinary relics up close.
This is the most important moment in this journey. This part of the mummy came from Valley of the Kings, so maybe it belongs to a king or queen.
Finally home in Egypt, can forensic analysis reveal exactly who the hands and this head belong to? In the Valley of the Kings, Don and the local workers are starting their day with a team ritual.
One of our workers, his wife, she started making cakes for us. So he got the nickname Abu Cake.
Yeah, take the whole thing. Don't be shy. You know it's good.
A lot of times we start with tea and cake, and then we get right to work.
Today, Don is visiting one of the largest and most spectacular sites in the valley. Tomb number 11. After his discovery of a ring that could belong to a pharaoh, he's hoping to verify the inscription.
We're in the tomb of Ramses III, perhaps the last great pharaoh of Egypt's age of empire.
And of course, he's entitled to a special and beautiful tomb in the Valley of the Kings. So he was obviously very powerful. He's a great warrior. This magnificent, well-preserved temple shows him just causing havoc on foreign invaders and anyone else who gets in his way.
Each pharaoh had his own name and insignia called a cartouche. It was a key part of tomb decoration, found on walls, the coffin, and precious artifacts like rings.
In front of me, we have a depiction of his names. We have a seated figure of the goddess Ma'at. On the right, we have the sign for Usur, or powerful, and then a sun disk up here for Ra. This is a blown-up image of the ring we encountered in Tomb 49. By looking at the hieroglyphs on the ring, it's essentially identical.
Ramesses III was a warrior, famed for battling Libya and other neighbors trying to invade Egypt. But his wars drained the state of its wealth, and in an argument over which son would inherit the throne, Ramesses was murdered. Some believe his wife plotted to have him killed. His burial and tomb were lavish. Golden amulets and jewelry would have been placed in every layer of his mummy wrappings. But Ramesses' tomb fell prey to raiders, and like the tombs of many other pharaohs, the mummies were stolen, unwrapped, and stripped of their treasures.
This tomb is just across the way from Tomb 49. I find it interesting that we find a ring of Ramesses III inside Tomb 49. Maybe that ring dropped off a mummy. It could have been dropped by tomb robbers. So we can start with an interesting idea and then see where the evidence takes us.
Don's challenge now is to find out why a ring with Ramesses III's name on it was found in the rubble of the mysterious Tomb 49. At Deir el-Bahari, Antonio and his team have been working to uncover a secret entrance found close to the tomb of a pharaoh's right-hand man, a vizier called Ipi. It could be a chamber built to hide treasures, or even a body from thieves. After 2 days of digging, for the first time in possibly 4,000 years, the entrance is finally clear.
I will have a look now. Well, it's perfectly empty. There's nothing in there. Just a magnificent rectangular empty space.
So how was that?
Well, it's probably have been dug for a burial, and it can fit for a small coffin, also raw materials. Anyway. Of course, this means that tomb robbers actually was ahead, and they took whatever was there.
The team removes all the rubble to verify the chamber has been completely stripped.
So we would like to find things in the way they were constructed, but all these robberies and plundering somehow tell us a lot about the rest of the process.
All they can do now is number the tomb and map its location.
Disappointment should not be a scientific thing. It's it's human feelings, and of course, sometimes you feel it, but you have to live with it.
On the other side of the site, Ipi's mummification jars are proving more rewarding.
Hello, Salima.
One jar in particular contains something extremely unusual.
So I brought you this organ.
Oh. We can see this is quite a well-preserved heart. You can see the different chambers. And here you can just see this very nice reddish resin. And this sort of red gold color is important because people used to use resin not just because it deodorizes, disinfects, inhibits bacteria, and smells nice. When you're a corpse, it's good to smell nice. But also because it gives you this color. And when you're being mummified, you're being transformed from a human being into a divine being whose flesh is of gold.
Found in the embalming jars, the heart almost certainly belongs to Ippy.
It's sort of amazing to actually be holding Ippy's heart. But I mean, also you think, oh my God, what is it doing here? Because it should be with Ippy wherever he might be. Yeah.
The ancient Egyptians believed the heart contained the soul and was vital in the afterlife.
So it's amazing.
To find one separated from its mummy is extremely rare.
This is the only mummified heart that I have ever seen.
Perhaps the embalmers made a mistake and thought that it was one of the natron bags to be put into the jars.
I think they messed up. We just hope that poor Ippy is not having a problem in the hereafter because he's lacking this very key organ.
We have been studying the Vazir Ippy from the historical point of view, and suddenly now you see yourself having the heart of this Vazir. It's kind of impossible to imagine being so close to someone that you have been studying for so many years.
For me, this is the best job ever. The adventure of having to deal with so many new questions every day, so many new decisions, new findings, exciting ideas, makes this job incredibly interesting, much more than any other thing in the world.
At Tomb 49, Don's discovery of what might be a great pharaoh's ring has caught the attention of the authorities.
The director of the wider area here, so very important position to have. He wants to take a look at that ring with the name of Ramses III.
The chief inspector of the valley assesses the progress of the excavations on site.
That's not the jewelry box. Here it is.
He has the power to take over the dig at any time. Any relics found in the Valley of the Kings belong to the government and must be verified and cataloged according to strict rules.
Shukran. Congratulations.
The inspector gives his seal of approval.
Okay. You're very welcome. Thanks for coming out. The Egyptian authorities seem to be quite excited by the whole thing. I think he was impressed. So that's always good.
For the ring, really it's amazing because, you know, it is the most important for us is continuing the name of Ramses II.
The ring is a major discovery, likely to end up in a museum. But for Don, the question still remains, how did Pharaoh Ramesses III's ring end up in Tomb 49? One theory is that it was accidentally dropped there by robbers, and the ring isn't the only thing they left behind.
One of the things that makes this particular tomb very special is that above its doorway, we have two examples of ancient graffiti. It's written in red in a cursive form of hieroglyphs. And the graffiti talks about there being very fine linen and linen shawls being stored in this particular tomb.
The graffiti is actually a list of items commonly used to wrap mummies, and it's signed.
There's a prominent name mentioned, a fellow named Buddha Amun.
could there be a link between Tutankhamun's list of materials and Ramesses III's ring? Helping to discover how they might be linked are Professor John and Dr. Colleen Darnell. They've studied Tutankhamun's letters and inscriptions for decades.
Rock inscriptions are probably about as close as you can get to the mind of an ancient Egyptian, thinking, what do I want people to think about me? How do I want to present myself?
Today, they're on their way to Tutankhamun's house, a temple complex called Medinet Habu.
To visit temples that I read about when I was a 5-year-old, and to go back and be able to know what everything says and the historical interrelationships is just truly a dream come true.
It's one of the most intricately inscribed sites of ancient Egypt. It should reveal more about Tutankhamun, a high-ranking scribe who oversaw the Valley of the Kings.
Where is the title that we need? Oh, wait, there's a ma'a.
It's great to see Bu-Tahi Amen. So I think this is overseer of the treasury.
But there is no treasury as such. There's no treasury building. Of course, he is overseeing the greatest treasures of New Kingdom Egypt. He's in charge of the Valley of the Kings.
Letters have also survived that give more details about Tutankhamun's role in the valley.
One of the really most important bits of direct information is this letter saying, get together a team of whom Tutankhamun is one. And they're basically told they have to carry out this commission. And the really important part here, it says, open one of the tombs. And that's interesting because this is something then apparently it's like a special mission.
The letters and inscriptions reveal that 80 years after the death of Ramesses III, Tutankhamun was given the official role of protecting the valley from robbers. In reality, he was secretly ordered to loot the tombs of long-dead pharaohs like Ramesses. One by one, he opened them up, taking any treasure to restore the wealth of Egypt. He even unwrapped the pharaoh's mummified bodies, taking the gold and jewels hidden in the bandages. But Tutankhamun still respected the pharaohs, so he rewrapped them in new linen so they would remain intact for the afterlife.
Royal tombs are not robbed by random robbers. They're opened systematically by people like Tutankhamun. They're basically doing something for the state before actual robbers do it. For decades, the real source of wealth of the state is probably to a great extent what Tutankhamun and his associates are bringing out of the earlier royal tomb.
Did Tutankhamun drop Ramesses III's ring while carrying out a state-sanctioned robbery in Tomb 49? In Cairo, Egyptian authorities are battling modern-day tomb robbers. Stolen mummy parts intercepted on the international black market have been returned to the Egyptian Museum. Thought to be from the Valley of the Kings, could these be the mummified remains of a great pharaoh? As Egypt's foremost mummification expert, Professor Salima Ikram has come to analyze the remains.
It is always exciting to meet another ancient Egyptian, even in bits and pieces.
How fabulous. Oh, well, this is just a child's hand. But look at those little rings. And with people who were robbing mummies, what they did was they would cut off pieces because it was easier to sell to tourists. And hands were really very, very popular because often they had rings on them. والتاني هنا الآخر يد هنا. Oh wow. Okay. This is clearly the hand of an adult, but what's extraordinary is that it's missing some of its digits. But even so, there's a ring.
A blue ring is clearly visible through the mummy's wrappings.
Oh, wow!
But could this be a pharaoh's head? The methods used for mummification changed over time. Salima is hoping to find clues that will help her date these remains.
Oh, look, I think you can see its hair. Look, right there's the hair. So there's hair here and hair here.
That means it's a man.
Yes, it's a man.
How old?
How old? Good question. There's gold. And here?
Salima has spotted small flecks of gold all over the head, in particular around the eyes.
This is a Roman period mummy because it's gilded.
During Roman times, the bodies of important individuals were often coated with gold leaf. But at that time, the Valley of the Kings was no longer used as a burial site.
So this means it's unlikely that it's from the Valley of the Kings. Dealers would want to make up a good story that would hike up the price. And so the Valley of the Kings, of course, is a pedigree that most people would jump on.
He may not have been a pharaoh, but such liberal application of gold would have been reserved for someone extremely wealthy.
These three pieces, I don't think any of them are related in terms of belonging to the same body. But still, they're mummies, so they can teach us about mummification, the history of robbery, and their own life history. So they're really very important pieces.
For Shaban, from the Ministry of Antiquities, it's a rare victory over the tomb robbers.
It's very important for us that we recovered all the information for the history. This is very important that we will add some information to the history of Egypt and the history of the whole world. This is an unbelievable feeling.
In the Valley of the Kings, Don Ryan is assessing all the discoveries excavated from Tomb 49. He has an incredible new story for this tomb.
We're almost done. I would describe our season as unexpected. You have this chamber that we sifted through every bit of it, and we found some interesting things.
This tomb, it was robbed like all the other ones, and at a later point, put to some other use.
Don's finds of the mummy wrappings and Ramesses III's ring, combined with the graffiti outside the door, suggest this tomb could have played a central role in a state-sanctioned criminal plot. In here, Tutankhamun unwrapped royal mummies and stole the jewels hidden inside their bandages. Some treasures, like Ramesses III's ring, were accidentally left behind.
All these little tombs, they're full of fascinating things. And when you put it all together, this place truly is amazing. Archaeology in the Valley of the Kings is by no means over. Just when you think it might be, it isn't.